Radio TV Phono Nut here, and yeah, we had a heck of a week with the cold and ice that we usually get about once every 25 years down here. This is really the first day I've been out in the building since then, but anyway, what we have here, and I got this cheap, by the way, this is one of those Crosley reproductions. It's made to look like a 1940s Belmont radio. And yes, I indeed have the Belmont tube version here somewhere. And I'll have to say they did a pretty good job with the design of this one. Some of the reproductions are just hideously fake. And some of them, they did a little bit better job making them look like the original. This is an AM/FM model, as you might expect, with a side-mounted cassette player, and those cassette mechanisms were never any good. This has preset push buttons just like the original had, 3 for AM and 3 for FM. I don't see any other band switch on here, so I guess you set this to AM or FM by using one of these buttons, and then you can use the tuning knob to dial in your station. Here's the back of the radio, Crosley CR3 radio, and this covers AM and FM. It does not have the AM X band, so this was made before the early 90s, and of course we got to get that made in China there. Crosley Limited Edition radio, serial number 4646. Production code 88. And I think this was probably made in 88. At one time, I think it had an ink stamp with the month, but those usually wear off by now. Now, I remember I started collecting tube radios in 1989 whenever I was 12 years old, and I really wanted a wooden cathedral tube radio, but unfortunately, those weren't exactly growing on trees in my area. And yes, I remember seeing all of the Crosley and Thomas reproduction radios in the catalogs, and even then I tended to look down my nose at them. And one night at the supper table, we were talking about my hobby, and I blurted out some smart-aleck comment, "Well, I wouldn't have one of those reproduction things. If it's not the real thing, I don't want it." And later, Mama told me, "Son, you really hurt your dad's feelings because he was going to buy you one of those reproduction cathedrals for Christmas." And I mean, I was always taught to be appreciative of things people give you, so that made me feel kind of bad. Well, I still got the radio for Christmas, and I'll admit that even though I tried to show my appreciation for it, I really wasn't as appreciative as I should have been. And I played with the radio for a while, and yes, I think it had a factory defect. It always motorboated a lot, mainly on AM, but sometimes on FM, and it wasn't long before the cassette player started chewing tapes. And like I said, I played with it for a while, and then once I started getting more tube radios, I forgot about the Thomas, and my father eventually took possession of it. And then years later, it stopped working completely, and I ended up giving it to somebody who just wanted it for decoration. And looking back, as an adult now, that, like I said, I should have been more appreciative of that radio, and I probably should have hung on to it, because even though it wasn't a tube cathedral like I wanted, it was still very thoughtful of my parents to think of me, and my parents were always encouraging of my hobby. Oh yeah, there were times that Dad would sometimes yell at me for when my messes would get out of control, but that's to be expected. They didn't do me like I've heard some kids say their parents do them, as far as discouraging them from bringing home all this old junk. In fact, my mother used to tell people, well, she'd tell them, yeah, I admit his stuff sometimes gets in the way, but when he's home fooling with an old radio or TV, at least I know where he is. He's not out drinking or partying or getting some girl pregnant. All right, enough about that. I have no idea what this does. We'll plug it up and find out together. It may work, it may not. Let's see. Volume control is very scratchy, and I suspect we're on AM.
For who it's going to get, and if that tends to be Bridgewater.
Let me turn these lights off. It's just like with the tube sets, these have interference, pick up interference too. This one's even picking up interference from the camera.
You don't have the quarterback that you think.
There's something from out of town trying to come in.
So, those are the two that to me are...
Oh, that sounds interesting. Okay, this is certainly not a DX magnet. I didn't really expect it to be. The sound quality is, I guess, okay for what it is. Okay, that switches us to FM.
Right, first came. And so. I put on these clothes like a hobo. There's layers of drip. I show my skills.
Yeah, we gotta get our mumble wrap on.
Show me the way, ain't it?
One or the other.
Products are still in the
College World Series.
I think this tuner's dirty too. Okay, this is how you switch bands. This preset button acts as an FM selector, and the AM selector is this button. Okay, I get it now. Let's try tape. Flip the switch on the back to tape. More mellow 60s. Alright, let's see if it'll play this without chewing it up. Alright, let's see what happens. Yeah, it's working, but the fast forward and eject. It's working, but I'm detecting the usual wow and flutter that this type of mechanism is known for. Here we are with the back cover removed, and the automatic tuning mechanism looks like they very closely copied the original type mechanism that the Belmont radio uses. One thing I can say I'm a little impressed by is the fact that they're not screwing the back cover retainer screws directly through the plastic like they did in some of the older sets, especially from the 50s and 60s, and then the plastic cracks. At least they have the little metal threaded inserts here that you screw the screws down into. So I like the fact that they did that. Now, to clean this volume pot is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt because it's recessed down in there. I might have to put two straws together to get down in there, and I might have to dismount this power transformer to make it a little easier, but I don't want to pull this thing completely apart just to clean the volume pot. Well, I was able to clean the volume control, and it's just some little dinky control like what you'd find on a on a pocket AM transistor radio. Look at this quality control issue. They forgot to tighten this bolt down that holds this little bracket in place. Alright, we're back together. So right now we're working static free as far as the volume control goes. Now the tuner is a little touchy, especially towards the upper end of the dial. But I'm not going to mess with it. I'm hoping it'll improve some over after using it, because those little sealed tuning capacitors are a bit of a pain in the butt to clean, and if you spray cleaner on them, it'll usually mess up the alignment, and you may never get it back right. So I can tell the alignment's already a bit screwed up anyway, but it was probably that way from the day it left the factory. Cabinet's in pretty good shape. I can see a little yellowing on it, which means this thing has probably been exposed to a little sunlight.
I can promise you that I'll try to work.
There's the classic country station. It usually comes in booming on one of the GEs.
Looks like he's trying to do too much, you know. If he could just...
All right, 25 to the top of the hour. We'll get to your calls in mere moments.
I think that's 102. It's coming in about 105.
Fresh seafood and frozen drinks, and a $250 American Express gift card.
Oh, my God!
See complete details and register at 97okk.com. So go ahead. And
yeah, 97 ought to be about right in there.
The workspace is amazing.
That's with Joel Small. That. Well, Dr. Ashish Jha has a...
Part of the problem may be that dial pointer not lined up exactly right, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not worried about this.
You can simply download the Access 4 app.
Come on, Limu, keep pedaling. We got to build our
Okay, is this AM?
Right, so most importantly, people have to compare...
Don't talk to Limu like that.
Or is it not AM? Where's the AM button? Okay, maybe. Yeah.
Covered the NBA. I think there's been lots of...
Yeah, the AM's a bit off too. That's 910 coming in at about 1,000.
They're not laying it out.
1010. 1390.
90s are like, sometimes dudes wouldn't play all that hard, though.
Now with that done, let's talk about Rush for a little while. As I'm sure most of you know, Mr. Limbaugh recently EOL'd, at least on this earth anyway, and it's been said that he was the savior of AM radio back in the late 80s, which he may very well have been, because as most of you know, when FM radio started really taking off in the mid-70s, a lot of the top 40 rock stations moved to the FM band because of its better fidelity and its ability to broadcast FM stereo sound, which is something, of course, you couldn't get on AM. And by the early 80s, it was pretty much game over for a lot of AM top 40 rock stations. So at that point, they either had to make a decision, either go off the air or switch to a format that would sell, and that's when a lot of stations started switching to a news talk format. No matter how bad I or anybody else dislikes the format, that's just the way it is. Now, our station, our AM station, WMOX 1010, that you've often heard in some of my videos, they started out in 1946, and eventually became a top 40 rock station. In 1978, they switched to a country station because by that time we already had some FM top 40 competition in the area, and there again, WMOX had to switch formats to something that would sell. Well, in late 81, WOKK, the other AM country station, I think WDAL was country too, but they went off the air completely, I think, in 82. But anyway, WOKK in late 81 flip-flopped with their sister station, 97.1 WALT, and 97.1 became WOKK, the first FM country station in the area that I know of, and they're still on that spot today. And then, excuse me, and then 99.10 became WALT, an urban contemporary station, which it remained until sometime in the mid to late 90s, and they briefly went to black gospel, and then they flipped to talk. But anyway, WMOX struggled with the country format until 1989 when they added Rush. And as a young teenager, I was very ticked off at that move because I don't like talk radio. I don't care who it is. I've never listened to a full episode of Rush Limbaugh or anybody else. It's just not my cup of tea. But I was real disheartened when they did that. But at least we still had music on WMOX starting at 2 p.m. Well, unfortunately, between 89 and about 94, the music kept getting less and less until by the mid-90s they were all talk. And then in recent years I expressed my displeasure about that move to somebody who used to work for WMOX, and he told me our ratings were in the toilet. It was either changed to a format that would sell or go off the air. So, and he said as soon as we adapted an all-news talk format, our ratings went up again. And, you know, the cold hard facts are that no matter how much I or anybody else dislikes the news talk format, a radio station's a business and they have to make decisions that will be most profitable for them. And yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to tune in an oldies station or something on one of these old radios, but that's just not the way it is, and probably not the way it's ever going to be unless I use my own transmitter.
Okay, well, I can't go and
Okay, we might go back in this and try to tweak that tuning condenser. It's kind of bugging me that dial's off so much, but anyway, we'll talk about Rush and AM radio for a few more minutes. People are speculating, is AM radio going to be able to survive without Rush Limbaugh? Now, your guess is as good as mine on that, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But my thoughts on that subject are, since Rush came along, there's been plenty of other conservative talk show hosts to come on the scene, and I feel like somebody will jump up and have their own show that people will get addicted to. Heck, Donald Trump may have his own radio show. Who knows? And I feel like they'll probably run reruns of Rush that people will listen to. Now, in my area, Rush hasn't been on the AM dial in, a year or two. And that stopped, well, let me back up, 1010. I can't remember when they dumped Rush, and then he went to 910 AM WALT, which at that time was a talk station. And then they dropped the classic country format from 102.1 and started simulcasting 910 WALT's talk format, so you could hear the same thing on both stations. Well, a year ago or so, I don't remember exactly, but 910 AM broke away from WALT 102.1 and became a black gospel station and changed the call letters to WMOG, I think. But yeah, there really hasn't been much talk on AM around here. WMOX, they have the local morning show that's not what it used to be, but it's still a locally run show. And then when that goes off, they run Mike Gallagher for a few hours, and then they run Fox Sports Radio all afternoon, which can also be heard on 1450 AM, another local station. Now, to me, that's just real weak. You'd think WMOX could come up with something else to run besides programming that can be heard on a competing station, but you know, what do I know? And then when they get tired of running Fox Sports Radio on MOX, they run Dave Ramsey for several hours, and I don't know who they run at night, but yeah, most of the conservative talk show hosts are actually on two different FM stations, 102.1 WALT and 103.1 or 3 or whatever it is, which is Super Talk Mississippi. And all of the AM stations have a translator except WMOX. And quite frankly, I don't even see how they're staying on the air. I don't even see how they're making enough money to pay the bills, let alone clear a profit. Now, what I'm noticing about the other AM stations that have translators, the sound quality is really crap, and the FM translator sounds a lot better. I really don't think they're pouring any money at all into the AM stations. They're just doing just enough to keep them on the air, all because the FCC says they have to have an AM station on the air in order to have the FM translator. Now, as far as AM completely going away, or should I say analog AM going away and going digital, it may happen one day, but I don't see it happening anytime soon because there's not that many receivers on the market. Until the market is saturated with AM digital capable receivers, stations would be stupid to switch to AM digital. And when you already have AM stations financially struggling as it is, I don't see them going further in the hole by upgrading their equipment to digital. It's just stupid. And you know, why switch to a format that most of the population is not capable of receiving anyway? Now, a while back I was at an estate sale, and the lady running the sale's daughter was there overhearing the conversation. She's probably about 19 or 20, and we were talking about the old radios and stuff that I buy. And she said that she had never used a radio in her life, and she wouldn't know what to do with one if she had one. And I found that very sad, but that's just the harsh reality that most young people today get everything through their smartphone. Because, you know, they can get what they want when they want it. You know, they're not stuck with the giant media conglomerate fed 20 songs in constant rotation on free over-the-air AM and FM radio. And like I've already said, I'd love to see an oldies station on AM radio, and I mean a true oldies station, 50s through 70s, but it probably will never happen. And they tell me the reason that'll probably never happen is because that music format doesn't fit the target demographic that they're shooting for. They want the 20 to 40-year-olds or 45-year-olds or whatever, because those are the ones that are more apt to try new products and buy products that are advertised. But that demographic does not largely listen to 50s through 70s oldies. The ones who are listening to 50s through 70s oldies are your 60 through 80-year-olds in 2021. Yeah, that's hard to imagine, but that's the way it is, they say. And most of those people are set in their ways, buying what products that they want to buy, and no amount of advertising is going to get their attention. Now, me personally, I don't think you have to be 80 years old to enjoy music from the 50s and 60s. Whenever I was a teenager in the 90s, that's all I listened to was oldies, and back then you were hard-pressed to hear anything newer than 1970 on an oldies station. But of course now with shifting demographics and all that, your quote-unquote classic hit stations, as they like to call themselves, are playing virtually nothing from the 60s, very little from the 70s, and everything's getting to be 80s and 90s now. But, you know, I don't believe you have to be 70 or 80 to enjoy older music. Like I said, I listened to older music whenever I was a teenager, and I've known of a lot of other teenagers and young adults that liked the older music once they got exposed to it. You know, once they got exposed to it, they found out that that was a lot better than the lady garbage and the mumble rap that they were being fed on the local FM stations. So, but I don't know. What happens to AM remains to be seen. You know, it may improve, it may go further down the toilet, it may eventually go away, but at any rate, in a lot of instances, if we want to hear the music and content that we want to hear on radio, no matter whether it's me or somebody else, if you don't have a station in your area that's playing it, then you're just going to have to build your own or obtain your own low-powered AM transmitter to do it. Now this here is 102.1, and I can't even tell you who this guy is.
Strike.
And there's 103 that appears to be running a ball game.
And I think it's helped, Richard. I think he should be...
One other thought that I had about Rush that I forgot about was back in the late 90s, WMOX stopped carrying Rush and replaced him with somebody else by the name of, if I remember correctly, G. Gordon Liddy. I think it was one of those deals where it didn't cost them as much to run the other guy as it did Rush, but there was so much public demand for Rush Limbaugh that WMOX soon dropped the other guy and put Rush back on. So, you know, whether you liked Rush or not, that ought to tell you something. And if he wasn't so widely accepted, he wouldn't be in just about every radio market in the country. So on that note, maybe he did have a major positive impact on AM radio. But like I said, he hasn't been on AM here in a year or two. So now I think we'll open this back up and see how hard it is to get to those tremors on the tuning condenser and see if we can get this alignment a little bit better. And there's your fake modern day country music. And there's the top 40 station, about the same caliber as the mumble rap. Kiss 104, the adult, I guess you call it the grown folks station. Yeah, there's our classic country station. That's the GE reproduction brings in fine. This one just barely gets it. There's the station the college owns. Pretty much just an automated mix of mostly 80s and 90s with some 70s stuff in there. Alright, our alignment is drifting all over the place on its own. As you can see right now, 106.9 is coming in about, right there. And now it's coming in about right there, closer to where it's supposed to be. Alright, I think this problem is more mechanical than anything because it's doing the same thing on the AM scale. That's 910 coming in over, at about 1100. And after running the dial all the way to the end and running it back,
Don't you? I'm banging it. Don't you?
So yeah, we got to see what's up with that. Well, I'm looking in here, and I don't know what's going on, and I'm trying to set the push buttons based on the instructions for the Belmont radio, since it appears to be the same mechanism, and the buttons are not setting up right, and quite frankly, I'm not interested in spending a bunch of time on this Chinese piece of junk. If you want to tune it, you just tune the knob till you hear the desired station and let it go. Just not interested in wasting a lot of time with this. And if I land on this mumble rap station too many more times, I'm gonna get real irate and take a hammer to this thing, which is probably what I should do in the first place. But yeah, the neighborhood, a lot of times I hear that crap coming from cars, and I referred to it as ghetto trash, and I got told that if certain people heard me say that, they would say that's my white privilege coming out. And I just had to bite my tongue, because you can call it whatever you want to. If it's trashy music, it's trashy music. And don't talk to me about white privilege when the ones over here playing that crap are probably better off selling their dope and doing other crap than most of the rest of us are. Oh, look at this. Isn't this a hoot? This radio has a weight in the bottom of the cabinet, screwed to the bottom of the cabinet, because this thing is so, without it, it would be so lightweight that whenever you pushed one of the tuning buttons on the front, it would knock the whole radio off of the table or whatever that you have it sit on. Yeah, this is some fine Chinese engineering. Needless to say, the Belmont radio didn't have any kind of weight in the bottom of the cabinet, because the chassis was heavy enough to. It was actually built well enough that the chassis was heavy enough to hold the radio down on whatever table that it was sitting on, that you could actually press one of the tuning buttons on it and the radio not slide off. Oh, that's enough for me to just put the back on this thing and forget about it. The only other thing I was going to do with this radio was disable the tape deck and put an audio input jack on the back where someone could plug an auxiliary source into this, since this tape deck's a cheesy piece of crap anyway. But I'm not even going to bother with that. This radio doesn't even deserve that. You know, put the back on it. It can be a good shelf queen, and if somebody wants to listen to it, they can use the knob on the side of the radio and not pay attention to the tuning dial position or worry about these tuning buttons that obviously won't set up right. Oh, you're the bad guy and you're a girl? Or are you a girl? I don't know. You could be a guy for all I know. See, that should be coming in right there at 97 about
Day.
Don't stop him.
And now it's coming in about where it's supposed to. I think what is happening is that dial cord is slipping, and you know, and I'm not going to take this Chinese piece of crap apart and try to fix that. It is what it is. It wasn't built that well to begin with.
Won't say the words that I want, but you flirt when you're drinking. I see those bubbles.
But yeah, just so anybody won't call me a racist or anything. I think this is trash. I think this is trash. And I think this is trash. And if calling this kind of music ghetto trash, makes me white privileged, then so be it. Then I'm white privileged.
Down.
And all you people in control.
Oh yeah, and that's trash too.
That I'm at an all time.
Here's Dr. Falcon.
Boy was stealing the 5477. That's 601-483-KISS. Weird Kiss 104.1.
Alright, it's nighttime, so this AM should be plenty hot. There's WSM coming in.
And by the way, same thing here, though.
Using powerful.
Putting them into something safe, like 360 limited edition smart batch plus special financing. There's going to be much.
See, that's where that needle should stop, but instead it goes all the way down there. Okay, in conclusion, the radio, it doesn't sound that horrible. I've heard better, but I've heard a lot worse. I can listen to it without having my ears get offended. The reception is fair. Once again, I've seen better and I've seen worse. My biggest complaint I have is the tuning system here, and of course the crappy cassette deck. But as far as turning it on and tuning it to your favorite station with a knob on the side, you know, it would be a okay radio for local stations. Here's the cassette. Yeah, wow and flutter all over the place. Speed too fast. That's fast forward. You click it once for fast forward. I'm sure it could stand a new belt, but I'm not even going to bother with it. Oh, now it's not even fast forwarding anymore. So, yeah. It didn't destroy my tape, though. Alright, I'm done with this crap. But between this flaky tuning capacitor and this screwed up tuning assembly, there's not much hope for this. You know, whenever I was a young teenager and making snide remarks about the reproduction, such as this one, I'd often hear comments along the lines of, well, the only reason you don't like it's because it's not 100 years old. Well, no, the reason I don't like it is because it's a piece of trash from China that doesn't work worth a crap, but priced like it should work worth a crap. However, here's the GE radio that I was telling you about. I don't know how many versions GE made. I know of a Cathedral, and I know of this version here that has a lift top that reveals a cassette recorder, not a player, a full-featured cassette recorder that you can record off of the radio and actually has fast-forward, rewind, and all that on it. And let's see how it operates. Okay, we'll do a quick band scan on FM.
When my spirit is right,
that's a mumble rap station from about 90 miles away. The other one won't even touch it.
Change the way you feel.
That's the classic country station that the other one would barely touch.
Well, the seed is suspended in a... construction or wherever you need grass.
So maybe student loan borrowers won't be.
Finish strong. You already
and
prepared
this one
for you after this year is another journey full of goodness. I mean, these are all great things to saying about your husband, but you're also letting her bet. That's in the dark.
Music at its best. The songs that made country great. In the best of the new Dixie Country.
The station over in Alabama that the other one won't touch.
Gang unit looking for my young Merkin. Gang unit looking for
Pretty much everything on down is either religious or public radio.
Grace, we're going to send you.
And
it's called The Deepest.
Because when we pray for
no earmark.
Let's try AM. Turn the light off. Still getting some noise from somewhere. WSM coming in good.
News.
Stop 15. Add the corona. To me, son.
As you can tell, even with all the interference,
People who have.
This one's doing better than the other one did.
Yep. I think there's a second day.
We got support.
One of them was natural gas.
Times and we won a World self-scouting.
Yeah, with everything we was getting on FM, you'd think we was in Shango country. Let's see how the tape does. Wish this lid had a latch on it to hold it up.
We're gonna find one that really screams.
And that's one that I recorded off of some 45s, so sounds pretty good there. Fast forward. And I will say the controls on this one have a better feel to them, unlike the cheap Chinesey feel that the Crosley and Thomas reproductions have.
Old folks try to catch their breath and children catch their jack.
Yeah, here's my tape here. Give you an idea about what's on it. Some stuff on it that you're not going to hear on the radio that much anymore. And Speaking of radio, I was told that the guts in this GE is basically the same circuit as a GE Super Radio. You know, the one that goes for so much money because of its superior AM performance. So, and I can believe it because this one indeed performs well on both AM and FM. So if you see one of these GE somewhere for 10 or 20 bucks, get it because it's worth every penny. And here's our commercially produced cassette. Okay, before we end this video, we'll pull the back off and get a look at the insides of the money shot. Okay, according to the date code, this one's from 1990. I know GE made this for several years, at least from about 88 until the early 90s, and I think there was even an RCA version, which is not surprising because by the time this was made, Thompson had owned the rights to the RCA and GE product line, and this cabinet looks to be real wood, so that's a plus. Alright, here's the inside. Decent sized speaker and magnet on it. Chassis looks much better made than the one in the Crosley. There's the ferrite loop stick. Is more substantial than the one in the Crosley. In fact, everything about this is more substantial than the Crosley. Alright, the only thing GE could have done to make this radio better was to provide external antenna connections for both AM and FM, and then this thing would have really been hot. But if I really wanted to do that bad enough, I'm sure I could add something on here.
And you are allowed to target people at these encouraged to target people at these. Albert will retire.